New York Times reporter, Herbert Gold, wrote when the Cannery Row movie came out. And the second thing that I read, we'll do at the end. And if anybody knows what it belongs to, extra brownie points for you. So reality is not necessarily really real. The legend of Cannery Row, still palpable if imagined, is present and resonating on a short sandy stretch of beach from which the sardines and the sardiners and the sardineries have long passed away into a fished out heaven. Doc and Dora and the booze and crustaceans and philosophy and the overarching memory of the silvery fleets of little pilchards have returned to a sort of invented meta-reality, a place where a few got rich and the picturesque chords packed and cleaned and struggled and remained poor. Cannery Row in Monterey in California is a poem, a stink, a grating noise, a quality of light, a tone, a habit, a nostalgia, a dream. Cannery Row is the gathered and scattered, tin and iron and rust and splintered wood, chipped pavement and weedy lots and junk heaps, sardine canneries of corrupted iron, honky-tonks, restaurants and whorehouses, and little crowded groceries and laboratories and flop houses. And I'm very honored to be here today to tell you about a tiny part of that world, the world of the not so tiny Flora Woods.
Tracy, we're not seeing your screen.
Can you hear?
Yes.
No?
No.
Let me try again. I'm sorry. Let's try it this way.
Still no luck. We love it when it works in rehearsal, but not in the room.
Anything?
No.
Ugh.
Oh, it is working. Sorry. Okay, people say it's working, so
Okay.
proceed.
Okay.
My apology. Go ahead.
Try it again. So our gal, Maria Florina Silva, AKA Flora Woods, was born April the 9th, 1876, to Manuel Vieira de Silva and Maria Costanares. Her parents, Manuel was born in 1837 on the Flores Island in the Azores. In 1860, he ended up sailing to California around the Horn. And there's, by an account, he began his career as a whaler in Carmel by 1863. In 1863 was when he married Maria Costanares, Flora's mom, and who came to California from Mexico City. She was born in 1847. Flora was the 9th of 14 children. That is way too much children for me to even consider. I have a dog, and that's about it. And in 1890, they bought 207 acres of land in Carmel Valley. And so this is a picture of Carmel Valley in the background, which we just saw before as well. And this picture is from 1880. So it probably doesn't look that much different than it did when Flora lived there. Unfortunately, Manuel Vieira de Silva did pass away on February 15th, 1893, by drowning in the San Jose Creek. These are a couple of her siblings, which one of my amazing cousins put together in the ancestry family tree that I have access to. So this is an older sister, Lily. We have Antone, who's a younger brother, and Frank, who's also a younger brother here. And there's also Mr. Joseph Silva, who resided in Seaside, and he actually comes into play at a later time when Flora ends up in court, which we'll see a little bit about that later. Flora's first husband and the father of her only child was Charles Woods. He was born in 1865 in the Lone Star state of Texas, and they married May 31st of 1895. He was described as over 6 feet tall with long wavy black hair which hung over his shoulders. He was said to be very robust and strong, and it was also said he could ride anything with more than 2 legs. He did ride with Buffalo Bill, but he did quit because it was said he didn't like to show off. But he became one of the most well-known vaqueros and cowpunchers in the state. He married Flora in 1895, and they had their only child, Nettie, in April of 1896. But he did end up taking his own life by overdosing on laudanum at the Old Union Saloon on Pearl Street in Monterey. Here is one of the obituaries that I saw, and it just kind of restates everything that we said. And he was sitting on a chair with his boots down by his feet. He said evidently he did not want to die with his boots on. And Flora names the Lone Star, the most famous brothel, after him. Nettie is Flora's daughter, and like I said, she was born April 4th, 1896. Flora was 20 years old. Nettie says that she spent her early childhood years with her grandmother in Carmel Valley until she was about 5 years old. All of this came out during a trial testimony in 1935, where Flora and Nettie go head-to-head over a custody battle of one of Flora's granddaughters, Nettie's daughter. And Nettie says that she did not even know who her mother was until she was 4 or 5. Once she did, Flora did come back and claim her from the Carmel Valley Ranch. She moved around with Flora to Watsonville, Salinas, Monterey, Carmel, back to Monterey, Watsonville, and did end up in Monterey for the duration of her life, where she did pass away. Nettie said that she lived above Kelly's saloon, and she did not really, they kind of had a tumultuous relationship. Nettie wasn't really that excited about this exciting life that she was leading with her mother. Nettie has a daughter out of wedlock in 1913, and by all intents and purposes, we're going to call her Dolly. And Dolly was born in 1913, and that was before Nettie did marry Eugene Shaw, her husband, in 1914. After Nettie and Eugene married, they had 8 more children until, you know, their youngest was born in 1935, and that's my father, David. Here's a nice picture of Nettie and her husband, Gene, from 1920. They're very cute. I like Gene's little bow tie. Here's I think one of the earliest pictures I have of Nettie's children. This is about 1930, and this is Dick, Lorraine, and Charlie. Three of the 9. And so now we're getting to the brothels. So in 1917, Flora opens up her first brothel, and she calls it the Quick Lunch. You know, it's said that you can go in for lunch and a roll in the hay. In 1919, she marries her second husband, Santiago Dominic. And in 1923, she ends up divorcing Dominic on cruelty grounds. And she also alleges that he stole money from her. The earliest I could tell from my research that the Lone Star opened was 1924. There's various dates floating around about exactly when the Lone Star opened. 27, 28 I saw as well, but this was in the Monterey Peninsula Herald that I saw that, doing some research in the wonderful California History Room at the Monterey Library. And then we also know that Flora opened the Golden Stairs in Monterey. There was also a brothel in Seaside, which has a great story. And I know that it was in the Monterey Weekly, they shared it at one point because there was the Monaca family who lived next door to the Lone Star, and Hiroko Monaca, the wife of the couple, she got really sick. So the late night parties and stuff coming from the Lone Star were keeping her up all night, and she was getting sicker and sicker. So her husband Royal came over to Flora's one time, and he said, you know, my wife she just can't take the late nights anymore. And Flora ended up trading their house that they were in right by the Lone Star for the famous Seaside brothel. So you know, Flora is definitely renowned for doing many things for other people, and that is one of them. Also, as far as the brothels were concerned, I've heard just through, like it says, family lore, that she had houses from here to Alaska. And Dolly, Nettie, her first granddaughter, Nettie's daughter, helped run some of those. And oftentimes they were laundries. Flora's Girl. So at the National Steinbeck Center in Salinas, there's all of these like tapes from people that have been interviewed. And one of those interviews was Flora's Girl. She wanted to remain anonymous because she became a gold star, which means that she graduated from being just a prostitute to getting married and having children of her own. And she didn't want anybody from her new life to know what she had done in her previous life. But according to the reports from this reformed prostitute, Flora used to sit on a stool on the left side of the bar. She could hardly fit on her stool. She was a big woman. She was very generous with the girls in the community. She always had her girls dress very nicely and wear expensive perfumes. She said that Flora's room herself was always very gussied up and really fancy looking. with like Victorian era furniture, and you know, she always had really nice clothes as well. She named her famous house the Lone Star after her husband Charles Woods, which we know. No one ever called it the Lone Star. They would just call it Flora's. So it would be, oh yeah, I'm going down to Flora's. And everyone knew what that was. She says that Flora and Ed Rickets were very good friends, and he would come in a lot. Steinbeck and Rickets would also come in when they were out of beer at Rickets' old place. She also said like the girls were always standing in the doorways. They were very painted up. And she had a cool story about being sent into Wing Chong's with a very big order to put in where she was filling baskets for less fortunate families in the community. And they were very full and costly. But she had to threaten and kill the person that was standing at the counter if anyone found out who was handing out the baskets, where they came from. She also recalls a company convention from this company called Philco at the time, where everything was on the house, like everything. Girls, beers, booze, and some men would even have competitions to see who could have the most girls in one sitting. She even mentions a rumor that Rickets purportedly conducted an abortion for one of the girls as well. So this is a little sketch of from A.L. Scrap Lundy's real life Cannery Row, where he shared some stories of real people on Cannery Row that were based on, you know, John Steinbeck's characters. And so he had a great little drawing of what Flora's pretty much looked like. So in the middle there, on like the middle right, you see Flora's raised chair where her big bottom would sit. And yeah, and then the bedrooms in the back with the kitchen, and there was a lounge and dance floor. Pretty cool. I liked seeing that. Here are some newspaper articles. This is the first one when Flora was married to Santiago Dominic, where this heavyweight Salinas attorney defended Flora Woods. Here's another one from October 2nd, 1923, where she then divorces Santiago Dominic. Here is one from 1933, where Flora took in a former soldier to her home to give him a place to stay. And it was purported that he wanted some money from her, and she refused to give it to him. So he plunged an ordinary ice pick into his chest just above his heart and committed suicide. But I could definitely see her saying something like, well, as long as he didn't get any on the carpet, you know, I would. So here's where things get really interesting for me, because when I was a kid, I didn't even know who Flora was until after my dad passed away in like 1995. And I remember talking to one of my cousins one time, and she said, well, you know who our great grandmother is, right? And I was like, no. And she said, oh, well, it's Flora Woods, like the Madam of Cannery Row. She's in John Steinbeck's books. And I was just blown away. I couldn't believe that there was this piece of family history that I had no idea about. But Nettie didn't really like, well, what I was told was that Nettie did not like what her mother did for a living. Nettie became very religious during her lifetime, you know, having 9 kids. And so there was in 1935, so this, I'm sorry, the date's a little bit messy there, but on November the 8th, 1935, you can see a first article there where it says Flora Woods political pull is cited in Battle for Girl 7. So that 7-year-old girl is Dolores Shaw. So one of Nettie's middle daughters, who was said that Flora, for some reason, unknown still, Flora had custody over Dolores since she was a baby. And in 1935, the Shaws, Nettie and Jean, decided that they wanted her back. So here's a picture of Flora and Dolores at the time. If anybody mentions a family resemblance, it's friendship off. And so, you know, here's the article, and it says, you know, Flora Woods said that I couldn't get my child back. And these words fell like a bombshell in Superior Court H.G. Jorgensen's courtroom last Saturday morning during the testimony of a mother who claims her child is unlawfully being kept from her by Mrs. Woods Dominic, who's the child's grandmother. And this begins a salacious news story that like 4 different articles are on the cover of the newspaper about Flora Woods being in a custody battle with her daughter. Here's the next article from November the 18th, 1935. And it says, new deal for custody of girl sought by Flora. So they're, you know, hearing all of these testimonies about, you know, Flora's giving testimony, Nettie's giving testimony. And that's where the only way that I found out any information about Nettie's childhood was that they asked her, you know, like what had happened during her childhood and what her childhood was like living with Flora. And then she goes on to say, you know, I didn't even know her until I was 5. And, you know, she's horrible. She's a horrible mom. So what they were saying that the case was actually about at the beginning was that the court was trying to injunct and abate the Lone Star Café property on Ocean View Avenue. They wanted, the Shaws wanted it declared a nuisance and not allow Flora to use the property for 1 year. The case is entirely unprecedented because it's the first on record in which a daughter has taken actual legal steps against her own mother to have her branded as the keeper of the house of prostitution. Flora testifies that she had given the Shaws money in provisions for years, and now they're getting even because she tries to cut them off. This is also the very start of the newspaper war that Flora gets in with the Monterey trader. And so here's the cartoon from the front page there, and where Flora's calling in and she's mad at the trader for, you know, like putting the story on the front page because it's her own personal business. And, you know, she wants her 4 subscriptions stopped. So she wants the one stopped at Lone Star on Ocean View. She wants it stopped at the Golden Stairs. She wants it stopped at her house. And then she also wants it stopped at George McMillan's house, who's the deputy sheriff of Salinas. I thought that was pretty cool. November 15th, 1935. This is the Lone Star gets closed up and they're starting the red light abatement proceedings. Flora, you know, then also threatens to make it impossible for the Shaws to live in Monterey any longer. And actually, in a shocking turn, on November 22nd, 1935, Judge Jorgensen rules against Flora and the Shaws and gives an unnamed family outside the Monterey Peninsula custody over 7-year-old Dolores Shaw. Yeah, Flora loses custody of girl 7. And there's a very funny there's a really funny testimony of Dolores when she gets on the stand, 7-year-old Dolores. And, you know, they're asking her all these questions because Flora said she had never been in the brothel before. And so she gets up on the stand and she's like, yeah, I went all the time. And you know, oh, well, did the girls teach you anything? And she says, yeah, to sing songs. And they're like, are they dirty songs? And she goes, no, like they're not dirty. It was pretty funny. Yeah, so here's a little article where it says the girl is ruled ruled the ward of the court. And yeah, she's sent to an unnamed family outside the Monterey Peninsula. Here's Dolores is right in the middle there in the orange shirt. I mean, obviously she's much older than 7 by this point, but this is one of the only photos I have of her. And does anyone know who this is? Obviously, I can't hear you, but it's Walter Winchell. So after the last newspaper article about Flora losing custody, about the Shaws losing custody, Flora goes and starts a boycott for the newspaper. She goes around to all these businesses and says, you know, nobody can advertise in this newspaper again. They've sent me down the river. They're broadcasting all my personal business. And so she starts a boycott, and in response, the Monterey Trader starts a Winchell service. So Walter Winchell is known for being salacious and you know, very jazz agey in his writing. And so I'll just read a little snippet of the article from December 13th, 1935. Readers to be informed about visitors at Flora's joints. Flash, it's exclusive, sensational, stupendous, colossal. The Trader's newest feature. Watch for it, wait for it, read it and weep. Here's the dope, folks. Flora Woods, we are reliably informed, has launched a boycott against the Trader. Half a dozen merchants who have from time to time advertised in this newspaper have been informed that they will get no more Flora's trade if they buy any more space in the Trader. That apparently is the result of the Trader's recent news articles, editorials, and a cartoon in which the Madam Woods, her chain of houses of ill fame, and her self-asserted political pool were handled without gloves. Well, okay, Flora, the merry war is on. Hop to it. Run us out of town if you can. That's been tried before by experts, and we're still here. Nevertheless, have a go at it. We'll all have a lot of fun. And incidentally, you'll discover before it's over, you've been in a battle. So what they end up doing, or what they claim they do, or going to do, it says, the newest feature we believe will be of surpassing interest to our subscribers. Checking through the license numbers, for instance, may help many a Lone Star widow to while away an otherwise empty evening. Imagine the thrill that anyone would get on discovering, of all things, a familiar license number or a picture of this interesting new column devoted to the peninsula's two-timers. Yes, we believe we are justified in promising our readers one of the most engrossing features that has ever been offered in this or any other newspaper. The news service starts at once. Okay, Monterey, let's go. So that sends all of the politicos in Monterey into a panic, and they close down the Lone Star. You know, nobody wants their license plate in the paper. Nobody wants their picture. You know, so they just say, you know, we need to pump the brakes here. We're going to close you down for a while, and you can reopen when this all blows over. And here, there's another little article from 1936. Can Monterey find an honest and sensible way to regulate prostitution? And they just kind of discuss a little bit more about just the general concepts of prostitution and having something like that, you know, available in Monterey, where there's you know, military people and in the area. The ways that, you know, we have all remembered Flora are very amazing. Eldon Dedini, who's the famous Playboy artist, there's a funny story about this particular mural. I was walking downtown Monterey with one of my best friends, and I think I was like 19 or 20 at this time. And we're walking past this mural, which was, you know, on Cannery Row, blocking up one of the, you know, the empty fields. And I go, hey, that's my great grandmother. And she just looks at me and is like, what? Like, how, you know, you never told me this. And I was like, yeah, I mean, but it's true. And yeah, so I always really loved that mural. And I think, was it Jen told me that it's being transferred hands, right? And it's actually going to be displayed again for the public to see, which is cool because it's been in private hands for the past few years. Mr. Dedini also did this little poster as well, and it's our business to do pleasure with you. I think that's pretty cute, and I have a nice large print hanging up in my house. So every time I pass it, I think of Flora as well. And this was just another article there, the Lone Star closed. I mean, after 1936, all of her brothels are closing and reopening, and until she quits altogether in 1942. Another article from 1938 where the cops arrested Flora's gals for the first time in history. This was another thing that I found about Lorraine Shaw, Nettie's first daughter, who ended up working for Flora there for a little while. And she was killed in 1944 in a murder-suicide by her husband, which is pretty tragic. And their 3 children ended up going to live with Nettie, and Nettie raised them as her own. Here's the one of the last pictures I have of Flora, and this is clearly in the 40s. It's very like World War II-ish, but it's pretty cute. And when she passed, she died Adams, so she ended up marrying her last husband. Her third and last final husband was Earl Adams. And he was a taxi driver. He owned a very big taxi cab company. But in 1948, it is said that she did pass away penniless in Monterey. And she always really liked shoes. So that's why there's always shoes on her headstone. So yeah, if you ever make it over to the Encinal Cemetery, just go search for the shoes. And that's going to be Flora's gravesite. Here is a cool picture cool newspaper article that I have of Nettie from 1968, and she ended up owning a restaurant in Watsonville. She did many things over the course of her life, but where she prepared all of the food that got dehydrated and sent up in the first space flight. So it's actually really funny. Until I read this article, I didn't know where my personality, that part of my personality comes from, where it's like, I'll just jump off a cliff and not know why. And that's her. She said that she was scrambling 90 eggs at a time. She cooked 1,000 pounds of rice and macaroni. She was getting up at 3:30 in the morning and going down to her restaurant to cook and deliver it over to the dehydrating company in Watsonville for that first space flight. And Nettie passed away in 1967. And unfortunately, yeah, that's still many years before I was born. So I didn't get to meet her either. And there's a lot of great places that I've gone and done research. The Stanford University is one of them. I got to hold in my hands the original typewritten manuscript and pencil manuscripts for Cannery Row. And so here's I just took pictures of the little pieces about Dora that says, she's a great woman. She's a great big woman with flaming orange hair and a taste for Nile green evening dresses. And then here's the typewritten one.
The tracks. I know. Don't tell me. You got the family with you, huh? Nice to meet you folks. I'm Flora, the madam of the Bear Flag restaurant. Folks say you can fill all your appetites here at the Bear Flag. They also say I'm an exceptional businesswoman. I'm very generous to the poor families all over town. It's been said that I've helped finance more than one struggling cannery owner over the years. Come on back and see me.
So that's from the Spirit of Monterey Wax Museum that maybe you may or may not have been to, you know, on Cannery Row down at Fisherman's Wharf. And of course, then the famous statue, you know, with John Steinbeck sitting atop the rocks with Rickets there on the bottom, and Flora here on the side with one of her girls sitting above her. One of my favorite ways in which she has been remembered in the past was when the E. Vitus Clampus remembered her by giving her a parade and dedicating this plaque to her, which is no longer there. I've heard it got stolen. But I'd like to read, in closing, I'd like to read a small bit of this incredibly amazing article, which was from the Monterey Peninsula Herald, written by Joe Fitzpatrick on September 16th, 1969. A tribute and memory of Flora. Flora lives, sort of. You remember Flora. She operated the most famous house in Old Monterey. Old Monterey. And Saturday, a loose organization called the E. Clampus Vitus dedicated a bronze plaque at the Custom House Plaza to Flora's memory. Why? I don't know. But the E. Clampus Vitus likes to dedicate things. And as I said, it's a loose organization. Very loose. The plaque located on the plaza's exterior wall facing Olivier Street says, "In memory of Flora Wood, whose first house stood near this spot and whose girls provided solace to many a clamper. Monterey Viejo chapter, E. Clampus Vitus." The whole miserable ceremony began with a march from the Colony Club, wouldn't you know, to the plaza. The march was led by the E. Clampus Vitus band, a terrible band, unbelievably bad. And they hit sour notes with monotonous regularity. Some were playing one song, others playing others, sort of. Music was nowhere around. Most of them wore suspenders and red shirts. All wore red noses and crummy-looking pants. Anyway, there they came, stumbling down the street, led by that atrocious band. Dogs barked at the pitiful line of march floundered by. You got to hand it to the Monterey dogs. They show class. The marchers were bumping into things and each other. Some were falling down, a lot, but nobody seemed to notice much. One fellow was stomping on huge imaginary bugs. Apparently, he dispatched quite a few. Another kept saying, look at me, I'm twisting. And he was, not the dance, just standing still, all screwed up tight with his face behind his shoulders and his, well, never mind. But the head of the EVC organization isn't organized, is William C. Marsh, and he paid tribute to Flora as being one of Monterey's greatest madams. And that's kind of nice, because can you think of another one that deserves a plaque? And here's my last picture of Flora, and I hope that she is remembered as one hell of a woman.
Great, thanks, Tracy. So questions have not been coming in, but I've got a couple. So folks, please chime in the Q&A or chat window. We're watching for both of them if you've got questions. So I had understood that Flora had quite a bit of memoirs or memories or her written a record of her past. And what happened to those? What's the story on that?
Good question, Nancy. Thank you so much. Yeah, I heard it is family lore that that Flora gave Nettie her written memoirs upon her death, and Nettie burned them. And that's kind of why I was like, well, why the heck, would Nettie dislike Flora so much? And I just heard that that she did not like what she had done for a living, and that Nettie was very religious as an adult, and but then when I started doing research, I found out that the custody battle, and I realized that is actually when the split happened.
Amazing. So what about, where are the sources that you've been able to compile information that has shown up in this journey of materials that you've compiled? What have you reached out to?
Yeah, I think a huge resource for me has been the Monterey Public Library. I've spent many afternoons sitting in the California History Room with Dennis Copeland, who was the director there, who was fantastic. And yeah, I remember going in my first afternoon and thinking I was going to have to go through a bunch of microfiche. And I went in and they had done the work. Like, I mean, it was just a file that came out, and they had organized all of these wonderful articles. Like, I mean, I teared up like looking at it. It was so amazing that yeah, that they had done all this legwork for me.
Great. And then you said, I think I've heard you say about the Steinbeck resources as well might have had some content for you. Is that right? Or
Yeah, a
am I
little
making
bit.
that up?
Yeah. I have I've gone to the National Steinbeck Center in Salinas, and they have the audio archives there. And I haven't been through all of the people that mention Flora quite yet, but I've been through a good handful of them. After the COVID thing happened, they kind of shut it down, people coming in for unnecessary reasons. So I wasn't able to finish my research there. But yeah, it's like you go in and you listen to these headphones, and people will tell stories. Like the Flora's Girl was one of my first ones that I listened to for sure. And then I drugged my mom up to Stanford University, and white gloved through through some of anything that had to do with Cannery Row. I pulled out and looked at to see if notes or anything from John Steinbeck would have anything to do with Flora.
Great. And you're still looking for more content that might come from folks who've been in the area for a while, I hear?
Absolutely, yeah. Charlie Osborne, who wrote this wonderful book. Oh, you guys can't see it. Boss, about St. Memoirs. He contacted me a couple weeks ago and said, I have a story about Flora. She called my grandfather and wanted him to pull some strings about letting her keep her liquor license for the Lone Star. So, and apparently he's like, well, I don't really know what I can do. And, but I guess, he made a couple phone calls, and she calls him back and says, I don't know what you did, but thanks. Because she got to keep it at least for a little while.
And what of the ladies who worked for Flora? Are they a source of information, or do you have any more information about who they are and where they might be now?
Well, I do think that most of them have passed on, because back in the 20s and 30s, they'd be pretty old now. But yeah, I mean, I keep fishing. I'm hoping, that I would love to talk to people all about it. And yeah, but I have not talked to anyone that specifically has worked for Flora.
Great. And see, there's a comment here in chat that said that some of the streets in Monterey are named after some of Flora's girls. Is that true? Or do you have any references on that?
I have no, yeah, I'm not sure, but that would be awesome. That would make me really happy.
Yeah, so if anybody's got any good, juicy, or otherwise content that could help continue to build out Tracy's whole storyline here, she's got her hands up and ready, willing, and able to add it to the mix. So please.
It's a work in progress.
Yes, it's a journey to tell all of the rest of the story as it will evolve. Well, great. Okay, so I have been recording this session, but so there will be a recording of this available on the Carmel Residents Association website tomorrow. We'll have it on the homepage. So you can go check that out if you wanted to re-listen to any of the great content that Tracy was able to share. But with that, I'm going to pass back to Fred Bologna. Fred?
Thank you, Tracy, for those
Thank you.
Pardon?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for those wonderful stories. I will need to reread Cannery Row while all this is still fresh in my mind. Please remember to save the date, November 19th, for our next program, a one-man show by Howard Burnman, Charles Dickens in America. And then to end the year, join us on December 9th for Carmel's Climate Change Initiative update by our village councilpersons, Jeff Barron and Carrie Tice. Be sure to vote on or before November 3rd. The Carmel polling place is Sunset Center as always. However, the Carmel ballot drop-off box this year is in front of the Harrison Library on Ocean Avenue and Lincoln. Should you need a refresher on our Carmel City Council candidates, you can view our October 1st Candidates Forum YouTube as posted on our website and CRA YouTube channel. Thanks again to Tracy Shaw for tonight's presentation, and we look forward to seeing you again on November 19th. And good evening, everyone.